When I first started working night maintenance for the university, I thought I'd lucked out. The pay was decent, the hours were quiet, and the campus emptied out completely once the semester ended. During winter break, the place felt like a ghost town. No students, no professors, just long hallways and the steady hum of machines keeping the buildings alive. I liked that kind of silence, the way sound traveled farther, the way even small noises, vending machines clicking, heaters kicking on, felt amplified after midnight. But there was one building I never got comfortable with: Weaver Hall. Most students thought it was just another storage building on the edge of campus. What they didn't know was that it used to be part of the city's old psychiatric hospital, back before the university expanded. The newer wings had been renovated, stripped clean, turned into offices and labs. Weaver was different. They never really fixed it, just patched it up enough to use for storage. Old equipment, boxes of records, furniture nobody wanted to deal with. The bones of the place were still there. When my supervisor handed me my first solo shift in Weaver, she joked, "If you hear bells or someone calling your name, it's probably just the heating system." I laughed. I don't laugh about that anymore. It was mid-December. Finals were over, and most of the students had already gone home for the holidays. Snow had been falling all evening, soft and steady, piling up against the buildings. The campus lights reflected off it, making everything glow faintly orange. My assignment was simple: walk through Weaver Hall, floor by floor, make sure no one had broken in or was sleeping inside. The building didn't have motion lights, and we weren't allowed to turn them on. Policy said sudden lights during break-ins caused unnecessary emergency calls. So I carried my flashlight. The moment I stepped inside, I noticed the cold. Not just winter cold, something deeper. The air smelled stale, like damp wood, the kind of smell that sticks in your nose. My boots echoed as I climbed the stairs. The building felt hollow. Christmas decorations from other buildings were nowhere near this place. No wreaths, no lights, just peeling paint and long corridors with old signs warning restricted access. I started on the top floor. Up there, most of the rooms were used for overflow storage. Metal shelves, broken lab desks, large shapes covered in plastic sheets that looked unsettling if you caught them from the corner of your eye. That's when I heard it. A slow creak, a door hinge somewhere behind me. It wasn't loud, but in that silence, it cut straight through me. At first, I blamed the heating system. Old buildings make noise when the temperature shifts. But then I remembered something that made my stomach tighten. None of the windows on that floor opened anymore. I turned and swept my flashlight down the hallway. Nothing. Just dust floating in the beam. I told myself to keep moving. The sound had come from halfway down the corridor, from room 214. The plaque still read Behavioral Studies Lab, though it hadn't been used in decades. The door was slightly open. I don't know why I spoke. Maybe it was habit. "Maintenance," I said. "Anyone in here?" No answer. I nudged the door with my boot, and it swung open. The smell hit me immediately, wet wood and dust. My flashlight beam jittered across the room, cabinets, a broken sink, overturned chairs. And then I saw it. Something tall in the corner. At first, I thought it was a shadow stretched wrong by the light, or maybe a coat stand someone forgot to move. But as I stepped closer, the beam landed fully on it. A figure, about 6 feet tall, standing upright. No real face, just the shape of a head, smooth and featureless, like it had been worn away. My breath caught. For a split second, I couldn't tell if it was breathing or if I was. "Sir," I said, my voice shaking, "this building is closed." Nothing happened. Then the head tilted, just slightly, like it had noticed me. I ran. I don't remember much after that, just my flashlight bouncing wildly, my boots slamming against the stairs. Every echo sounded like it was right behind me. I hit the last flight too fast and went down hard. Pain shot through my shoulder. Then I heard someone calling my name. It was my supervisor, Dana. She stood at the bottom of the stairwell, flashlight raised, hand on her holstered weapon. She said she heard a scream over the radio static. I tried to explain, pointing upstairs, words tumbling over each other. "There's someone up there, tall, standing in the corner." Dana gave me a look like she wasn't sure if I was injured or just spooked. She went up alone, while I sat there shaking, listening to the building creak around me. When she came back down, she wasn't escorting anyone. She was carrying something. An old wooden statue. It was of a woman, carved tall and narrow, about 6 feet high. Her face was smoothed blank with age. "This what you saw?" Dana asked. I couldn't answer, because that statue hadn't been in the corner. When I'd entered the room, it was standing near the window. I remembered because my flashlight had caught its shadow stretching across the floor. Dana said the statue had been stored there for years, that it must have just scared me in the dark. I put in my notice the next morning. Every December since then, when the campus empties out and the snow starts falling, I think about Weaver Hall. And I wonder how many things are still standing perfectly still in empty buildings, waiting for someone to notice them again. The first real cold snap of December always felt heavier than it should have. Not just colder, but quieter, like the world was at a still before Christmas arrived. Back when I was in college, I used to drive home every other weekend to pick up extra shifts with a regional courier service. Mostly night work, sorting packages, fixing jammed conveyors, moving crates stamped with red and green stickers. The drive was just under an hour, long enough for my thoughts to drift, short enough that I never questioned it. That Friday had been one of those dull winter days where the sun never really shows itself. Gray sky, dirty snow piled along the roadsides, frozen into ridges. The trees stood bare and stiff, their branches rattling softly whenever the wind kicked up. I left campus right after my last class, drove straight to the facility, and worked a full shift repairing a belt that kept seizing up. By the time I clocked out, it was close to 10. My fingers still ached from the cold, even inside my gloves, and my jacket smelled like oil and cardboard dust. The drive home was empty. No music, just tires humming against frozen asphalt, and the occasional thump of snow clumps falling from tree branches onto the road. Fog hovered low in the fields, catching my headlights and swallowing them whole. When I turned onto our gravel road, I felt that familiar pressure in my chest, the strange feeling of returning to a place that remembered you differently than you remembered it. I spotted the house from a distance, snow-covered roof, dark windows, the porch light flickering like it always did, that same motion sensor bulb my dad swore he'd replace every year and never did. My parents weren't home. They were out of town for a pre-Christmas weekend trip they took every December, which meant the place was supposed to be empty. I parked where I always did and shut off the engine. The silence that followed felt too deep. The cold crept in immediately, sharp and clean. My breath fogged the windshield as the hood ticked softly, cooling. Somewhere nearby, wind pushed through the trees, making a low, hollow sound. That's when I started feeling off. At first, I couldn't put my finger on why. The yard looked the same, the old oak leaning toward the driveway, the fence half buried in snow, the shed slumped in the shadows. Everything was where it should have been. Everything except the house. That's when I noticed the light. The upstairs bathroom light was on. It was such a small thing, but it didn't belong there. Every other room was dark, just that one square of yellow glowing through the frost-rimmed window, bright against the snow like an open eye. I stood there, backpack sliding off my shoulder, staring up at it. Had it been on when I pulled in? I honestly couldn't remember. I was still trying to rationalize it when something shifted behind the glass. At first, I thought it was condensation moving, or maybe the curtain stirring. But then my brain caught up. It wasn't movement behind the window. It was faces. 2 of them, standing side by side, looking straight down at me. I didn't move. My breath stalled halfway out. For one awful second, I told myself it had to be my parents coming home early, but these weren't my parents. The light hit them wrong, flattening their features, no expressions. Their eyes sat dark and hollow, like the light refused to touch them. They weren't angry. They weren't curious. They were just watching. And the worst part was the familiarity. Not recognition exactly, more like the uneasy feeling you get when you see someone who looks almost like you, but not quite right. The wind picked up, brushing snow-laden branches against the siding. The sound felt close, enclosing. Then gravel crunched behind me. Headlights swept across the yard, and I nearly jumped out of my skin before realizing it was my girlfriend pulling in behind me. Her little car slid to a stop, headlights flashing once before cutting off. The sound of her door opening felt jarringly loud in the cold. "Hey," she said, smiling as she walked up, her breath puffing white. "You're not going to believe this," I said. "There's someone—" I turned back toward the house. The window was dark. The light was gone, just black glass reflecting snow and sky. For a moment, I wondered if the bulb had burned out, but the window looked different now, empty, flat, like nothing had ever been there at all. My girlfriend frowned. "What?" I shook my head. "Nothing. I thought I saw something, I guess." We went inside together. The front door unlocked easily. The cold inside hit harder than the cold outside, seeping straight into my bones. We checked the rooms. Everything looked normal, except the bathroom. There was a small puddle on the tile beneath the window, even though the pipes hadn't frozen or leaked. The mirror was fogged, despite the air being cold. And when I bent down, I caught that earthy smell again, stronger this time, drifting from the vent near the floor. My girlfriend didn't seem to notice, or maybe she did and didn't want to say anything. I turned off the light and shut the door. We stayed in the living room for a while, scrolling through videos, trying to settle back into something normal. But every so often, my eyes drifted down the hallway to that closed bathroom door. And the longer I thought about it, the clearer those faces became in my mind, their stillness, their height, the way the light had caught them like they were already inside the house before I ever arrived. My parents still live there. They've remodeled the bathroom, replaced the window, redone the vents. And every time I pull into that driveway, I still look up at that window first. I grew up in one of those quiet suburban neighborhoods where every house looked like it had been copied and pasted from the same blueprint. White siding, square porches, identical wreath hooks nailed above the doors. Our street curved in a half circle around a patch of woods no one ever went into. In winter, you could see straight through the trees, all the leaves gone, the branches black and bare against the sky like ribs. Back then, Christmas wasn't just a day, it was a season, the kind that crept in slowly and stayed too long. The air smelled like chimney smoke. Someone down the street always burned wood in their fireplace, and that smell would slip into our house every time the door opened. White lights blinked along rooftops. Inflatable snowmen sagged on frozen lawns. And once the sun went down, everything felt muted, like the world was holding its breath under a blanket of cold. I remember that year clearly. I must have been 8, maybe 9. School had just let out for winter break. We spent the day decorating the tree, my mom humming along to the radio while she baked cinnamon bread that filled the house with warmth and sugar and spice. I slept downstairs that night because my room upstairs was too cold. The heater barely worked, and the pipes knocked all night like someone tapping from inside the walls. Sometime after midnight, I woke up. At first, I thought it was just the house settling. Old homes make noises when the temperature drops. But then I smelled something that didn't belong. Wet straw. It was faint, barely there, but wrong enough to pull me fully awake. It reminded me of the live nativity they used to set up downtown. Hay soaked from snow, animals standing too close together. The smell thickened, creeping into the room until I could taste it, sharp and sour at the back of my throat. I sat up slowly. Someone was standing in the hallway. Not my mom, not my dad. Someone tall, wearing a rabbit mask. The fur looked gray and matted, damp like it had been left outside. The ears drooped unevenly. The mask's teeth were too big, too human, catching the glow from the Christmas lights still plugged in by the tree. The figure didn't move at first. It just stood there, framed by the darkness, like it had been waiting for me to wake up. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. My chest felt locked tight. My brain scrambled for an explanation, some stupid prank, some decoration gone wrong. It was close to Christmas. People dressed up, people did weird things. But no one came into your house for that. The figure lifted one hand slowly and set something down on the coffee table. A small red paper gift bag. Snowflakes printed on the sides. Thin white handles folded neatly down. Then it turned and walked back down the hallway. Its footsteps were soft, padded, almost polite against the carpet. I blinked once. It was gone. I sat there for a long time, not moving. The house felt different, too quiet, like the walls were listening. The smell lingered. When I finally reached for the bag, my hand shook so badly the tissue paper inside rustled. Inside were 3 things. Not toys, not anything we'd bought. I shoved the bag behind the couch and didn't tell anyone. By morning, the smell was gone, and for years I convinced myself it had been a dream. But this is where it gets worse. When I was 16, my younger brother brought it up out of nowhere. It was December again. We were in the kitchen, snow tapping against the windows, helping our mom string popcorn for the tree, when he said, "Do you remember that one Christmas when someone left stuff in the living room?" My stomach dropped. "What stuff?" I asked, forcing a laugh. "You know, the guy in the rabbit mask," he said. "I remember because it smelled like a barn, like wet hay. I thought maybe Dad had tracked something in." He shouldn't have known that smell. I told him he was remembering wrong, but he just shrugged. And that night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop replaying it. The way the figure had stood there, silent. The way its head had tilted just slightly, like it had been listening to my breathing. A few days later, I told my best friend, Rachel. We were sitting in her car, engine running for heat, watching snow pile up on the windshield. I told it like a joke, like some dumb childhood mix-up. She didn't laugh. "Why?" I asked. "Because I saw the same thing," she said quietly, "the winter my grandpa died." She told me she'd been up late, unable to sleep, looked out her window, and saw someone standing at the end of their driveway, a rabbit mask, gray, dirty, just standing there, snow falling around it. She said when she looked away and looked back, it was gone. Neither of us spoke for a while. The heater hummed. Snow hissed against the glass. After that, I stopped talking about it, but I started noticing the smell again. Every winter. not just Christmas Eve, sometimes weeks before. Wet straw mixed with cold air. It would drift through vents even when the heat was off. I'd catch it on my coat after walking home at night, like I'd brushed past something I couldn't see.